Konnichiwa, and welcome to Reap the Spoils.
Aren't you fancy?
This is a podcast where we take a game, we play it, we spoil the hell out of it. So if you have not played the game, I do not suggest you listen to this episode. I suggest you go play the game and then come back to this episode, unless you want us to just spoil everything for you anyway. Delaila, I think it's your turn. What game are we talking about?
Yakuza Kiwami.
Yeah, we are talking about Yakuza Kiwami, a remake of the old Yakuza PS2 game from 2005 in Japan, 2006 in North America. So, if you've not played Yakuza Kiwami, I suggest you go play it before you listen any further. This is your final warning. Also, I'll just go ahead and say, we haven't played Yakuza 0 or any of the sequels, so
we won't be spoiling that.
Yeah, we won't be spoiling any of those. We won't be spoiling 0, which is a prequel to Kiwami/1, and we won't be spoiling any sequels after that. And also, B, please be patient. If we say anything that is if we say anything about a character that's insinuated or mentioned in a sequel, or we have an issue with something that gets changed in a sequel or fixed in a sequel, we haven't played them. We're only talking about this game.
Boy, look at these losers. Fucking
Yeah,
Yakuza noobs. Don't even know.
A lot of people yelled at me for not playing Yakuza 0 first. And I'm like, it's fine. Yakuza came out first anyway.
Yeah,
so
well,
we're just playing it in the way that it released, sort of.
It's funny because, First of all, release order is best order. Always. Mm-hmm. And I know that 0 technically came out before Kiwami, but Kiwami is a remake of 1, which came out before everything. So, I'm sorry, but to me, that says play Kiwami first. And my one friend, shout out if he listens to this episode, I think he's interested in listening to this one specifically because he loves Yakuza. He's the one that's been begging me to play this game for years at this point. He actually suggested playing Kiwami and then playing 0 before going on to Kiwami 2. Right. Kiwami is the intro.
Saying...
Go on.
Oh, I was just gonna say that's like saying to somebody who's never played the Metal Gear series. They play Metal Gear Solid 1 on a stream, and it's like, bro, you don't even know what the Shagohod is? It's like, bro, you don't even know that till Metal Gear Solid 3. Come on.
Yes. So we will only be talking about Yakuza Kiwami if we say anything that, is answered in another game. Don't get mad at us, please. Just bear with us. We at least I definitely want to play the rest of the series eventually. So.
Oh yeah. I'm definitely invested now.
Yeah, so we'll get there. We'll get there one day. But do we want to dive into a history lesson real fast before we talk about the video game? Jason, You good with that?
I mean, do I have a choice?
No, you don't. I just want to make sure you're okay with it.
I'm chill.
All right. So, history of Yakuza Kiwami. We're just going to... A brief history lesson. The original Yakuza game, by the way, Yakuza is how it's known in the West. How it's known in Japan is as Ryu ga Gotoku, which means like a dragon. It's actually the name of the studio that develops the games as well. It's Ryu ga Gotoku Studio. It's known that because, Yakuza is essentially the Japanese mafia, Japanese mob. They're not exactly
yeah.
They're not exactly looked upon brightly over there. So the game is referred to as Ryuga Gotoku, like a dragon over there, pretty much referring to Kiryu because of his, reputation. We'll get into that though. But yeah, the original Yakuza released in December 2005 in Japan and September 2006 in the West. Just to give some context on the original game, we don't want to go into the history of that game specifically, but as it relates to Kiwami, plans to remake the first game started in 2015. The studio was kind of busy with Yakuza 0, which came out in 2015 in Japan, both for PS4 and PS3, by the way. That game was a cross-generation game in Japan. It only came to PS4 over here. I believe the same is true of Yakuza Kiwami, but I can't quite recall. Yakuza 0 was extremely well received, both it as a prequel, the engine used, and because of that success, it pretty much just accelerated the plans, especially with the 10th anniversary approaching, for them to remake the first Yakuza game into Yakuza Kiwami. They took a lot of the enhancements that they used in Yakuza 0, a lot of the enhancements to the combat, stuff that would also later translate into Yakuza 6, as I understand it. They used a lot of that to make the game much more modern and up to the times and more aligned with what they were currently developing. And yeah, the game came out January 21st, 2016 in Japan. It didn't make its way west for about a year and a half. It came out here August 29th, 2017. So there's our brief history lesson.
Cool.
Trying to keep these things brief. All right, do we want to jump into the game? Talk about how we felt about it. Talk about how we feel about it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Jason,
No,
you look really
I
stressed out.
absolutely do not. No, I'm not. I'm good. I'm chill.
Okay. All right. Let's. I always like to start off with the ending. Now, I kind of like doing that first.
Kind of our MO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's we've been rocking that. I think we're gonna continue doing that. So let's just jump into that ending. So.
The ending was full of twists and turns.
I know. It was like...
Well, so you have this here as like the first thing. So this mystery lady who is Haruka's mom, supposedly Mizuki, who's supposed to be Yumi's sister, is actually Yumi, which I knew literally from the beginning of the game.
God,
wow.
I knew. How did I know Jason was going to say, I knew that all along. This is so stupid.
That was literally the most predictable element of the story. I will agree with you, though. I didn't even know I didn't even know Jingu, this dude, was a character.
It's funny because,
until that ending.
Yeah, well, because when we got to the part where we hear about Jingu for the first time, I thought that I'm pretty sure the name was mentioned earlier in the game, and I guess I just glossed over it and didn't really think about it. And now it turns out like he's pretty much the main antagonist. Like
Right.
you could make an argument for Nishiki.
Nah.
And Nishiki is like he is meant to be. I mean, he's on the cover art for Christ's sake, but like he's not really like an antagonist. He's just like somebody that wanted power.
He's an anti-hero.
Yeah, he's an anti-hero.
Jingu is like the Emperor, and Nishiki's like Darth Vader. Nishiki is has more of a personal conflict with Kiryu, and Jingu is more of a external conflict.
I feel like Jason brings a lot of stuff back to Star Wars. He does that pretty often.
Yo, man, I watched Star Wars yesterday. Yesterday was Star Wars Day.
Which of the Star Wars did you watch?
The Star Wars, because it came out on May 25th, 1977.
Okay.
By the way, we're recording this on May 26th.
Yes, we're recording this on May 26th. Okay, so yeah, Mizuki is actually Yumi, with a different identity, and you know, I guess it was pretty predictable, but at the same time, I didn't think that it was the case, but it's not that much of a reach, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
It wasn't predictable to me, but it also really didn't do anything for the story except show that she's super sneaky, and she like did a really good job of making sure her daughter was safe by hiding her identity.
And not really just her either, but Chairman Sarah
Kazama.
and Kazuma-san, yeah, they assisted in that. Kazuma-san stopping Sarah from killing her and instead convincing him, no, we need to keep them alive. We should put her in hiding.
Because you got to remember, Yumi apparently didn't even remember anything for like half of the 10 years that
the incident that where she was almost assassinated was what made her remember.
right. So she was like bananas for like 5 years apparently.
Yeah. But like let's style it back to Jingu. Yeah, Jingu's name I'm pretty sure was mentioned earlier in the game, and it felt the fact that I remember it, but so vaguely that I don't remember where I remember it, like tells you just how much of a like kind of a throwaway that was until the climax where we basically find out that he's the real villain. He's the one that the 10 billion yen belonged to, and he was laundering it through the Yakuza.
Right.
So really, the money that they were looking for, that they were trying to get, no, it didn't belong to any of them. It belonged to him. Doesn't mean that he deserved to have it, because obviously he didn't.
And one thing that really kind of pissed me off was that, like, okay, I get it. He's just supposed to be a generic bad guy. He's not really that integral. Well, I mean, he's integral, but I mean, in terms of like his importance to Kiryu versus Nishiki's, he's not that important in terms of a personal conflict. But the fact that he like there's a throwaway line like I'm not even going to get into the politics of why this 10 billion yen matters. Like they keep bringing up this vision he has for Japan and they just never explain it, so you just never even know why any of this is happening really.
I think a big thing is like he's kind of introduced to, and portrayed as like very generic bad guy.
Right.
Like very generic, overly bad man. He shows up and it's his money, and he shoots he attempts to shoot his own daughter, and has these motivations that are never really explained very well. Yeah, he's just like a very generic bad man. This is the bad guy. Like,
Yeah.
take out bad guy. And it's introduced so late in the game that it's, you know, he seems of so much less importance than he's actually like kind of thrown in and meant to be.
Yeah, the cutscene before the final fights is like just 20 minutes of exposition.
Yes.
Trying to explain he's there.
I definitely expected. We got a lot of missions in this game that were very, I don't want to say filler, because I felt like they did have meaning and they were interesting enough that I don't feel like they were filler missions, but not all too much happened throughout the game. We got like this trickle feed of like mystery and suspense on what was going on overall, and so it needed this big explanation dump right at the end to give context behind everything that we've seen so far.
I actually liked that, how it was kind of more of a noir like little thing. You just went on these little adventures. You got little bits of. I didn't really need like a huge big bad.
No, I totally agree.
Government level villain. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have liked it if they just kept it to Nishiki.
Yeah, the thing about Jingu that threw me off a little bit is like he did have a relationship with Yumi and had a baby with her, right? At what point did he know that she had amnesia and just like used her? Maybe I didn't like catch his intention of like having a relationship with her if all he cared about was power and money.
I think
essentially.
They said he fell in love with her at one point.
Yeah, like, I think they weren't really exclusive, like mutually exclusive. I think they fell in love, and it didn't have really anything to do with her amnesia. If I recall, I could be wrong. We could have.
That's the thing. Like it wasn't explained well enough, or that like relationship wasn't explored enough. Where I'm like, why the fuck is he trying to kill his daughter? And his wife or ex-wife.
I think that bit was less important than the fact that he left her for money and power.
Well, they never married. Yeah, they never married.
But but he still
basically
left her.
threw her aside because he wanted to get in a political marriage. Yeah,
correct. And then there was a journalist that threatened to expose that past of his, which he killed the journalist and then proceeded to try and kill them.
Again, this all probably like I might have liked this a little more if I had some semblance of an idea of what Jingu's quote-unquote vision was for the future of Japan, which he says a couple of times. But then, again, the throwaway line, I won't get into the politics of it. I'm like, well, it would kind of help for your character.
Yeah. But Jingu shows up with all of his goons. You fight through them all, and then you fight him. Which, by the way, that fight on the on the helipad, he wasn't even tough. His two goons that like revived themselves in the middle of the fight were annoying
yeah.
as shit, though.
It's because they had fucking knives.
Well, it's not
And
even
we'll
that,
get
it's not
into
even that
that
they
later.
had like yeah we will. It's not even that they had because they had knives. It was more so to me just because they were super fast. And
Right.
Yeah.
and really that goes in with what we were going to talk about later with the combat, but like they were just super fast, and it made it really, really hard to handle and deal with them.
I just took out a sword. Actually, it was my wooden katana and started beating the shit out of him.
You used
Wait,
that
quick
late
question,
in the game
did
using
they-
a wooden katana?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Delaila.
Did they continuously respawn? Because
No,
that's at a
just
certain
one.
after the second time I was like, forget it, I'm just gonna go for Jingu, and I didn't even bother with them as much as possible.
When you get Jingu's health bar to the second, because I think he only has 2 health bars, and when you get it to the second one, I think is when they respawn.
They,
If you die.
yeah, they come they don't respawn per se. I mean, for gaming purposes, like they respawn, but they really just like come back.
And they're more
get back
powerful.
up.
They have
Yeah.
they're like in heat mode. You know how sometimes you see the enemies like start
Yeah.
glowing and they're in heat. Yeah.
Yeah, so that fight was a little frustrating. But you take down Jingu, you go back down. Oh, and by the way, let's go double back to Yumi real quick and talk about kind of how much of a badass she was coming out, and she opens his
Yeah.
briefcase and it's just rigged, and she's like, "Yeah, go ahead. You shoot me. See what happens. Your money's going to
Yeah.
be fucking gone."
Well, that's the thing. Like, you see Yumi, and you're like, why does everyone want to fuck her? Like, why is everyone so into this woman? And then she pulls a move like that, and within 10 seconds, you just get it. You're like, yeah, this woman's like a total badass.
Yeah.
It's like Nishikiyama had a thing for her, Kiryu.
And she's like, I'm gonna take Yumi from you. It's like,
Yeah.
dude, she's just gonna blow herself the fuck up.
Yeah, how I also didn't really like just to talk about the love, kind of like the love. I don't even want to call it a love triangle because there's like multiple overlapping triangles.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, Nishiki
It's a
was
pentagon.
yeah, it really is. Nishiki's in love with Yumi, but like Reina's in love with Nishiki, which I didn't really see coming. I also didn't see Reina being Nishiki's his mole feeding him information.
Yeah.
I really
didn't see that coming, but like I picked up from the beginning of the game that she was into him.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, I didn't see her feeding the info. That I didn't see that coming, which is
Yeah.
that was disappointing. It was a good story beat, but it was disappointing to say the least because I really liked Reina.
Yeah.
And I was also sad to see her die.
I will say, like from the beginning of the game, I thought we would get not necessarily a happy ending, but like it would end somewhat with Reina and Nishiki together and Yumi and Kiryu together. Obviously, they
Yeah.
fucking pulled the wool over my eyes because fucking at the end, Kiryu's the only one fucking alive.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, continuing on, I just wanted to bring up the love pentagon, as Lila put it. How'd you guys feel about that boss battle with Nishiki?
That was pretty fun, actually.
It was probably my favorite boss battle just because of how viscerally intense it was. It wasn't like I found actually the boss battles got easier after the midpoint. Like it wasn't hard. It was just almost a grind.
Yeah.
I don't think I even used a healing item during that boss battle just because at that point I had fully upgraded rush and I was really good at dodging and evading attacks to the point where I didn't even get hit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're fully upgraded. There's things all over the place to like grab and throw. There's a lot of room to like run around. So I had a lot of fun with that. I just like went
The
in beast
music
mode
was
and
awesome.
just-
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, you
They
could
both
pretty
had
much
their shirts off,
Yeah.
tattoos.
the dragon and the koi.
Which like I didn't even realize the origin of Magikarp until I saw that. Like Nishikiyama is Magikarp
Jesus.
and Kiryu
Yeah, it becomes
is
Gyarados.
is Gyarados. Yeah.
Yeah, like that. I liked that boss fight too. That was a really cool boss fight. I feel like I was a little OP for it because there was that that side quest line with Komaki in Purgatory to learn new dragon moves if you do like Coliseum
Yeah,
fights and stuff.
I
And
did some of that.
I had all of those done. The
Ooh.
second to last attack that you get for the dragon form is insanely overpowered.
Oh, nice.
It's called Tiger Drop. It's basically if you're doing if you're holding the focus button, focusing on an enemy,
Yeah.
um, and if when they go to attack you, you press triangle. By the way, just so everyone's aware, we played on PlayStation, so any button mappings that we refer to, we'll be referring to them on the PlayStation platform. But you press triangle, and he basically just does a quick like palm strike, and
Yeah.
it
Mhm.
takes out like 3/4 of a health bar. It's
Wow.
insane.
Oh, so see, I there's a similar one for the rush, where if an enemy attacks you and you're focused on them, you basically like punch their fist and
Hmm.
then uppercut them and knock them down. It's
Yeah,
like
Yeah.
a counterattack. It doesn't do that much damage though.
it's like
So it sounds like basically the same thing, but just OP.
this is like an interrupt that like you have to have super quick reflexes with it, but like it's so worth it. Like at post game when I was finishing up Majima stuff, like I would just use that and demolish him in a minute. It's crazy. So I was a little OP for the final fight, but it was still really epic to watch. Um, with the interjections that happened, you know, when you get
Hmm.
him down to a certain point, throwing on beast mode and smacking him with chairs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
I
had
think
like 5 health bars, right?
Yeah,
yeah,
is a
he had the most. And I think a lot of the reason that was one of my favorite boss fights was just because I found Nishiki to be one of, if not the most developed of the characters in the game.
yes.
Just because we get a lot more backstory for him.
Yeah, we do. We'll get into that once we finish talking about it. Well,
Yeah.
we could talk about it now, really, because I think it might actually help to really understand how we got to that point. Like we got this because we got this trickle feed with every single chapter showing a bit of the 10 years Kiryu was in prison,
Prison.
and we just see the downfall of Nishiki. We see that um, his sister was basically gonna die, and the doctor wasn't really gonna operate. Because he needed he was asking for a hefty price. Nishiki finally got to that point, but he found out that the doctor had taken the money and used it to pay off gambling debts and left.
Shit.
So his sister was just doomed. And
And there was also just like that underlying feeling of he always felt lesser than Kiryu and
His-
was jealous.
his inferiority complex.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And which led to him murdering. I know that guy's name was said at one point. I can't remember his name, but he murders the one guy that was in his clan, and uses like the guy's blood to slick back his hair, and that was like to be the complete transformation into
Yeah.
the Nishiki was that
Yeah.
today. Which was like that was a dark moment. It was really well done, if you ask me. Yeah, I really liked how they handled that, because he was such a good timid guy before you take that fall, and he did like that drastic thing. You do that really good deed for him so that he can stay out of prison, and just to find out after Kiryu gets out of prison, like he's a completely different person, and he's done all these horrible things, and he's no longer even really your friend. I think they handled that transformation really well.
Yeah, and in a
Mhm.
really short amount of time, because I feel like had we played Yakuza 0 initially, where we saw Kiryu and Nishikiyama, their like brotherhood, so to speak, I feel like those like turning points for Nishikiyama would have had a lot more weight. But the fact that they were still able to hold weight with just that little bit of backstory says a lot about the game and that character.
Right.
Agreed. Um, yeah. So after you beat Nishiki, Jingu fucking shoots Kiryu and then goes to shoot him again, and Yumi takes the bullet, which was like the most melodramatic ass shit I've ever seen in a video game. It was like I was watching a soap opera.
And then fucking Nishiki stabs him, drags him into the room full of money, takes his gun, and sacrifices himself. He shoots the bomb,
Which was
this-
fucking
this was-
badass.
It was badass, but at the same time, I was kind of like pulled out a little bit because it's like, Kiryu and the little girl are right there,
I know.
10 feet away from you. The entire room around them blows up.
I'm like,
and they are just.
I guess that room must have been like blast proof enough where like no, because even it exploded a hole in the building. Like I don't
It looked
get
like
how it
fucking
worked.
9/11 and like just a few like beat cops come up. Like you don't have like the entire SWAT force or whatever of Japan coming in on you.
Yeah, like I didn't really get that. I mean, I guess we just take it for what it
No, I
what
know.
it is.
I do love that tone of the game where it's just so ridiculous, but at the same time, it's like it's a really serious story.
Yeah. Yeah. But and then yeah, I liked the bit where everyone sees the explosion, goes about their business, and then money starts falling from the sky. Everyone starts going
Yeah.
crazy.
I actually didn't see that happening. Nishikiyama coming in for the save at
Oh,
the end.
really?
Yeah,
Oh.
I didn't.
What?
Well,
I
look,
didn't.
I don't know that I saw it coming, but it was still just it was a really badass moment.
I just felt like he was so far over the dark side. Dark side. Here we go.
Oh, I just
That that there was like no turning back for him at that point. But
Well, to
I'm
use
glad they
another
did.
Star Wars use the same Star Wars reference. It's like the Emperor and Darth Vader.
yeah, right.
I wasn't even thinking of that before, but
yeah, and Yumi dies in Kiryu's arms. I feel like she ignored her daughter quite a bit in that death scene.
Well, even when she first saw Kiryu and Haruka for the first time, she was like, Kiryu! Oh, yeah, and Haruka.
Well, to be fair, she's seen Haruka more recently than she's seen Kiryu.
That's true.
Right.
But I
But-
don't know.
Yeah, she did kind of shirk her own daughter because Kiryu was there.
Haruka though, she's for like a girl her age, she sees some shit, man.
Oh, she
Oh, yeah.
she
a
has
girl with a-
like stone skin, heart of stone, like nothing
Look,
phases that girl.
And she's
Yeah.
like a master gambler. Like she was
Oh,
helping
I really
Kiryu win
liked-
all.
I
all
liked
of-
that chapter.
Oh no,
Yeah.
you know what's even funnier is like after you beat the game and you go into premium adventure, you basically unlock this additional like quest line of sorts where you have to dote on Haruka depending on what she wants. So like it could be anything from like I want juice, mister, and you go to the grocery store and buy her juice, and then she'll be like I want to see you bowl 3 strikes. So you go to the bowling rink and you bowl 3 strikes, and then she's like I want to see you win 2,000 chips in poker.
Right.
And like you have to go around doing all these mini games and buying her things to get her to a certain rank and whatnot. But like you have to basically do all of the gambling games for that, and it's so absurd. Like why does this little girl want you to go around and win all this money?
Yeah, she honestly, Haruka is the reason that I'm invested in the series because I want to see that character's growth and like how she becomes when she's older.
Yeah.
And I hope they explore that in the further in the Kiwami 2 and the other games, but you know, I haven't played that, so I don't know.
Yeah. To go back real fast, I do want to bring up something that I totally saw coming, but it was still super just exciting to see was the Chairman Sarah's will and finding out that he named Kiryu or that he and Kazuma both technically named Kiryu the 4th chairman of the
Right.
Tojo clan, which I totally saw it coming. Once I saw that the will was left blank and then it was up to Kazuma, like I totally saw that coming. But it was still a really exciting scene to watch play out because it was like right before the assault on Jingu.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just really cool, and he winds up resigning the same day that he accepts the position and giving it to Tarada, which we didn't. I feel like the game didn't
I
really
don't
explore.
understand that though. Aren't the Omni Alliance like the enemies of the Tojo
So
clan?
the Omi Alliance
Omi,
is
sorry.
a yeah they're a competing Yakuza clan from the Tojo clan. But the whole thing with Tarada was he was friends with Kazuma.
Right. No, I get why. Yeah.
Despite the rivalry and the fact that Jingu was able to just buy out the Omi Alliance and turn on Tarada and everybody else just like that, completely made him switch sides. And Tarada seemed from what we got of him, what little we got of him, he was a great guy, and Kiryu obviously saw that potential and decided to name him. I low key my roommate kind of got really invested in the game. We were both sitting there like, oh please tell me he names Majima the fifth chairman.
Right.
That ultimately did not happen, probably for the better. But yeah, promoting Tarada was a I kind of saw that coming and was still really happy about it too. And yeah,
Yeah.
the other big facet of the ending that Delaila alluded to, Kiryu adopting Haruka,
Yeah.
and she called him. Oh, it was so sweet. Jason, did you stick around after the credits this time?
Something happened.
Jesus
God
Christ.
damn it. I left them running because it said you couldn't skip, but I went outside
Good Lord.
and then I came back in and it was already at the title screen.
Always happens. It always happens. Yes. It was just like a small scene in the city with Kiryu and Haruka. We also get like a little goodbye sequence between Date and Kiryu, where he's gonna go live with his daughter and try the whole family thing out.
Oh, I saw that.
And
Yeah.
well, I think after the credits, you still see like Haruka, like call Kiryu Uncle Kaz, because his first name is Kazuma, so she calls him Uncle Kaz, which I thought was really sweet. Yeah, that's like kind of the whole ending. We kind of delved
Yeah.
into
Yeah. Really
into the whole-
fast.
yeah. So did we like the story overall?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, totally.
I look at it kind of like a Metal Gear game where like the story is completely bonkers and you could probably tear it apart
Here's
like
the thing
just
though.
logically in so many and like for a story that's the
It's
premise is organized crime, like you could probably tear it apart just logically in so many ways, but at the same time like the tone of it is consistent with the craziness of the story. So it ends up not really bothering me.
it's funny you say the tone is consistent when I feel like it's so overly dramatic one moment and then like the
But that's what I mean.
goofiest ass
That's what I
thing.
mean.
It's consistently
I mean.
Japanese.
That's what I mean.
That's
It's-
the best way we could put it.
the tone is as consistently crazy as the story.
Okay.
You know what I'm
Okay.
saying?
All right. I'll agree with that.
Because it's the same way that Metal Gear is that way.
Sure. I would say Metal Gear tends to be very overly complex when it doesn't need to be. This
Yeah,
was overall pretty
that's
simple.
what I'm saying the same thing here. Like I could really pick apart this story. I'm not saying it's like the best story ever. Like there's definitely like things that could improve, but I enjoyed it.
Well,
This-
what could improve? You love saying what you think, how you think game stories could improve, Jason. Give us some examples. It's like your
Well,
favorite pastime.
Well, like so you have this is a good segue. Like so I mentioned that Nishiki like had a real substantial arc. Like we really got a lot of development with him. Whereas I didn't feel like we got much substantial development with Kiryu. Like he was kind of a paragon character, which isn't necessarily bad, but for a protagonist that kind of gets a little stale to have like a paragon character that's just good, pure of heart from the start, doesn't really have many if any flaws.
Yeah, Kiryu is like for a dude that's like ex Yakuza and
Right.
and so, in organized crime, like he is a ridiculously good dude.
Yeah, exactly.
Like almost to a fault, I would say. Like he is a crazy good dude.
Well, that's why I liked him a lot, because it's like you're a total badass. You've probably killed so many people. Like, you were in prison for 10 years, and he's still just doing his best. But he still has fun. Like, he'll gamble. He'll go to a DVD shop. He probably, is a little naughty. He'll.
Wait, actually, did you guys do the side quest where you have to find gifts for this little girl to give to a little boy?
I don't
No.
think so.
Okay, so there's a side quest where you have to find some potential presents for this little girl to give to a boy that she likes, and Haruka like befriends her immediately. So you and Haruka go on the on a stroll to find gifts, and like one of them is you have to beat like a pocket racer race in order to get like this limited edition car to give him. You can go to the arcade and get like a little plush toy and a UFO catcher machine. But the funniest one was if you go to this back alley close to like where Serena is. If you go into this back alley, there's a vending machine that sells nudie mags. And you can buy one to give to the girl, to give to the boy.
Oh my god.
And like Kiryu's sitting there, like his rationale is just like, well, when I was a little boy, like I would have wanted this, so he'd probably like this. And Haruka's just like giving him the side eye the whole time, like, you can't be serious. You are not gonna buy that, are you? And I bought it just to see like what she would say, and like she refused to carry it. It was so funny. I didn't give it to the little girl. I just wanted to see what would happen between Kiryu and Haruka if I bought it. But
Yeah.
just you saying that he's a little dirty made me think of that, and I didn't know if you guys had seen that scene.
Yeah, his dirtiness was all very subtle though. It wasn't like a too machismo or like womanizing, which I think is common in a lot of mob games. Even though this is Japanese mob, so I'm sure it's a little different. But yeah, like I feel like he's already been through his dark moments, and I don't know. I didn't play Yakuza 0, but I get the sense that he's done some fucked up shit in the past, and he's kind of like seen the worst and just doesn't want to deal with that anymore. Is ready to like have a new chapter, and he knows how to manage with people because he's dealt with crazy shit. But maybe he didn't. Maybe he's always been good, and in that case, then that's pretty whack.
I guess like it would have been cool to see something like, I don't know, maybe after 10 years in jail, taking the hit from Nishiki, and then only to find out that he's now this fucked up villain. Maybe he feels he's owed something, and he finally, at the end of the game, finds out that he's been willed to be the fourth chairman, and there's kind of a moment of the dark soul, as they say in writing terms, where he has to make that decision and ultimately overcomes and realizes he needs to relinquish it. I don't know.
Yeah,
But-
I guess I'm just assuming that he had that moment already in his past. But like I said, I didn't play Yakuza 0, but that's just a sense that I'm getting.
We're Yakuza noobs. Don't hate on us.
Yeah, Kiryu was a cool dude, and I kind of want to talk about Majima. Can we talk about Majima?
Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
I love Majima.
Kiryu-san.
Kiryu-chan.
Chan. It's
Chan. Sorry.
He looks down on him.
What is Chan? I know San
It's
is like Mister, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's like an honorific. Chan, I think, is more so used for people of lower status, usually used for little girls, whereas
Kids.
Kun is usually used for little boys. It's not always that way, but they're just basically suffix honorifics. But yeah, Majima quickly became like one of my favorite video game characters of all time because he's just batshit insane. Like, you have entire story missions where he just shows up, does something like the third to last mission of the game. You're trying to find out where Kazuma-san is hiding, and a truck just crashes into the building. You fight your way down. It's Majima, and he's just there like, I've been looking for you everywhere, Kiryu. Let's fight.
Yeah, that was another one of my favorite boss fights. Just because then you like after a little bit you fall through the floor and you're fighting like in the basement.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that was
And
really cool.
yeah, yeah.
And like earlier in the game, he kidnaps Haruka. You chase him down. You find them, and he's just like, "Yeah, I just wanted to fight you. So I needed to bait
Yeah.
you somehow. So I figured it out."
And with the Majima Everywhere thing that they added now in this kind of reimagining of the
Yeah.
game, there are some really cool side missions that if you invest in, you can get to. Like, there's one where he pretends to be a zombie, and he like
Yes.
Oh,
hires his
gosh.
entire crew to be zombies, and you
Yeah.
basically have to run through the city fighting zombie versions of the
That was
Yakuza.
really fun.
Did you guys all meet Garomi,
No.
the
Wait.
the mysterious woman at the cabaret club?
Oh, is that the trans woman?
No, that was Majima in disguise.
Oh,
When,
no.
yeah. When you can go and you ask like, and you sit and you do like the normal cabaret stuff where you,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
You
and
go
he's
to-
dancing on a pole?
No.
No?
No, that
Okay, I
was
didn't do that then.
that was a different place. Yeah. No, you go to the one you get an email from his assistant, and you go to the one cabaret club, and you get matched up with a girl named Garomi, and it's
Yeah.
Majima dressed up as a woman.
This is a girl.
And
Oh
you
my
Yeah, and
God,
sit
that's
there.
amazing.
And you do the entire sequence is just like you would like normally. Like you sit down, they ask what you want to order, and you talk, and you can get his meter up the same way you would like with one of
And-
the cabaret girls.
And by the end of it, you have to go out and fight him while he's
Yeah.
dressed as Garomi.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I wish I would have done that.
Yeah, there was. Jeez, there's so many good ones.
I love the one in the club when he's dancing and everybody's in the crowd,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Let's have a dance fight," and you're basically just fighting normally.
Yeah,
but
I forget what his name is in that, but he's like, he's like wearing this super like 80s disco outfit,
yeah,
and you gotta fight him in breaker style.
Mhm.
And then after, and the best thing is after you fight these are like locked moments behind getting the Majima Everywhere bar up to a certain point. Like you'll find him like roaming in those costumes sometime. Not Garomi, but like definitely zombie and definitely the disco guy. Like you'll find
Yeah.
him roaming out in those costumes. You got to fight him in them.
the police one.
The
yeah.
police, police Majima you have to find, or Officer Majima you have to find sometimes. And then there's times where like it gets more and more unexpected the more you go. Like I went into Smile Burger, and I went to just get some takeout food.
Yeah.
And next thing I know, Majima's behind me in line, saying that Kiryu-chan is on the menu and he'll take it to go. And you have to go outside and fight him outside of Smile Burger.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite parts of the game was probably it was in one of the last chapters where he calls you up. He's like, "Yo, you're being tailed. Go in this taxi." So you get in the taxi,
Yeah.
and you actually fight. You fight like a whole host of Yakuza side by side with him, and he like gets shot, and he thinks you're dead, or you think he's dead.
For the record, there was no way that man was dead. I think
Yeah.
he's immortal. I think he lives purely to fight Kiryu. Oh yeah, that was another big like story moment. It's like when you go to fight him after he kidnaps Haruka, one of his goons goes to stab Kiryu, and he jumps in front of it
And takes the knife.
and takes the knife and says and basically says, "No, Kiryu-chan is mine."
Yeah.
Like I was blown away by that. Like that's how like cool and insane and crazy this guy is. Like he would take a knife for Kiryu just so he could keep fighting Kiryu. Like he's fucking crazy. I love him. He's nuts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely an example of how you use the nature of video games to create characters and tell story in a way that you couldn't do in like a movie or TV show or book or whatever. Because it's a very gamified character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, he pops out of manholes. He hides in big ass traffic cones. He jumps from the top of buildings just to fight you. It's crazy. I love it. Favorite part of the game.
And awesome memes and YouTube videos
Oh
online.
yeah, that.
I saw one of actually Mark Hamill doing a voiceover of Majima.
Yes, I believe he was the English voice in the original release.
Yeah.
He was the English voice of a character in the original release. And I get that's something actually we could talk about. How did we feel about the fact that it was all subtitled and
I
Japanese
loved it.
voices?
Oh yeah, I wouldn't play it any other way.
Yeah, I felt it was way more authentic because of it, and
Especially Majima, like
yes,
him
Yeah.
for him to say, "Oh,
Kiryu-chan.
little Kiryu" instead of Kiryu-chan, like that wouldn't have been funny. Or like when the mobs are like, "Nani?" Like
Yeah.
so many moments that can't be. Because I played Judgment before I
Yes,
played
that's right.
Yakuza Kiwami, so. I put it on English temporarily for my stream because I didn't want them to have to read, and
Mhm.
it's not the same at all. Like I almost wish they didn't give me the choice.
Well, it's also kind of it's interesting as because I studied abroad in Japan and had picked up on a little bit of the language because of it, and was picking up on certain things in this game, and I didn't expect that. I didn't expect to recognize a lot of that Japanese. I guess maybe that's a testament to how well I retained those lessons. But it's also just like super cool seeing a lot of the things in Kamurocho, and like how Japanese it all felt.
Yeah.
Like how
Is
cramped all the
Kamurocho
streets
supposed
were.
to be its own city, or is Kamurocho like
It's
a subsection of like Tokyo or?
it's a fictionalized Kabukicho, which is a real district in Tokyo.
Okay, so it is like
Um,
a district. Okay,
it's
so it's
it's
not like
it's
its own
based
city.
it's
Yeah.
based on a real like area of Tokyo, but it's
Okay.
not it itself is not a real
Right,
location.
right. I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure I was clear about that.
But a pretty accurate depiction from what I'm hearing. Like my friend was watching me play Judgment, which is in Kamurocho as well.
Mhm.
And she lives in Japan, and I was like, do people actually stand in the streets like this? Like, is this how that like
Oh,
people
yeah.
in Japan operate? And she was like, yeah, this is almost exactly like the
Yep.
place that it's intended to depict, which I think is amazing.
It's like, yeah, those tiny streets, people just everywhere. You just walking down them. Even walking into a convenience store, it looked dead ass like a Japanese convenience store, which was
Yeah.
awesome to me. Super nostalgic. How buildings are laid out with like a lot of them being multi-tiered. You having an elevator to go up to certain places, like that's a very Japanese thing. Yeah, it was really cool, really trippy for me to see just how kind of authentic it all was. Made me really happy.
And I love that it's an open world, but it's so small and contained that it doesn't feel like an open world.
Yeah.
I wish
didn't-
more games would be that small.
I didn't start
Right.
taking the taxis until like way later in the game because it didn't really feel like I needed to. Like
Yeah.
it's really simple to just run everywhere that you need to go because it is so condensed.
And
Yeah.
it's not like it's small and there's nothing to do. There's like a lot of shit
Oh
to
my
do in
God,
that
yeah.
game.
I'm still I'm like at 70, maybe hovering around 75% on the completion list.
No, I was only at 36. I put in 30 hours. I only got 36%. Yeah.
I'm like at 75 some odd percent, maybe 55 hours in, and like at the point that I'm at, it's like very 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 slow progress.
Yeah.
Because I have like mostly mini game stuff to finish. But it's a lot. There's a lot of stuff in this game. There's a lot of stuff to do.
And there's so much detail to it, and like there were little things I picked up on. Like there was one sub story, or the sub stories, quote unquote, that are basically just side quests.
Yeah.
There was one where you run into a actress who's like trying out for a role
Oh yeah.
that takes place, like she wants to be a dancer or whatever from back in the day, and she's like asking you about back in the 90s, like in the I forget how they referred to it in the game in Japan.
I forget the
but it's
terminology they use.
but it's basically an economic error. It actually happened in Japan. The Japanese economy crashed in the 90s, and they refer to that boom era right before it. And I was just thinking, because I'm familiar with that historical shit, I'm like, oh, that's cool that they actually reference that, and I'm sure it's a Japanese game. It's made by a Japanese company. To them, it's just like their basic history. It'd be as basic to us as like referencing the fucking Declaration of Independence or some shit like
Yeah.
that. But
Right.
it's just cool to see shit like that.
Yeah. Man, I guess we could just go ahead and talk about some of the sub stories and just like, what were some of your favorites that you encountered? Like, were there any that stuck out to you? There were a few that definitely stuck out to me.
I don't know. I'll pass. I got to think about this for a
Okay,
sec.
that's
Yeah,
fine.
I'm thinking about it too.
I can go ahead and start
Yeah.
naming off some of mine just off the top of my head. I really like the one, again, showing just how good of a fucking man Kiryu is. Like, there was the guy that was he was just drinking in the park and he wants more drinks, so you go and give
Yes.
him alcohol, and then he gives you a jacket, and you can go give that to a homeless man who will give you glasses. You can give the glasses to the one guy that's sitting outside the go-go dancer club that he forgot his glasses, so you give him those, and
Yeah.
he gives you this tape, and you go and give that to a homeless guy.
Yeah.
And like, it's just like that whole progression of
Goes
leading
on
to
and
something,
on and on, yeah.
leading to
That
something.
sub story reminded me a lot of Link's Awakening, where you have to constantly give items to,
And you don't
like,
know where they're gonna lead you. Yeah.
No, you just like run into the person. They're like, "Oh, I need this," and if you spoke to the person before that, and it's just like a never-ending thing until it finally ends. Which I don't think I ever finished that sub quest.
Oh yeah,
But it did remind me of Link's Awakening, so that was cool.
I really
There
liked
was
that
one. I think one of my favorite ones was there's just this random kid who's like waiting for his mom to come home.
Yeah,
And he's hungry. So you
Oh,
feed
yeah.
him once, and then you run into him again. But you have to go back to him with Haruka, so he has like another kid to talk to. You feed him again, and then all of a sudden, like, he just fucking erupts in pain and like passes out.
Yeah.
And you have to carry him and run across to find a doctor's, and you find like this shady ass working out of a back room doctor, and it like turns out he has appendicitis, so they have to operate on him right away. And this
Yeah.
black guy is in pain, this like athlete, and the doctor just like leaves him be, and the guy passes out, and they think he's dead. So you got to fight these guys, and eventually it turns out the black guy wasn't dead.
no, he just
just
had kidney
had
stones.
Yeah, he had kidney stones, and he passed out from the pain.
Yeah.
But the black guys think you're racist, so you have to fight them, and it was
That was
just
a hard
a
fight.
fun.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was a hard fight. Yeah,
It was
because they're really fast, and it's like a small room.
Yeah.
But it was
there-
just a funny story how it like took all those twists and turns, and like
Well-
you would never think it would end where it ends.
And the most heartwarming part about the end of that quest is you find out that the benefactor of that guy's clinic is Kazuma-san,
Yeah, it's Kazuma-san. Yeah,
which is like so heartwarming.
I thought
Yeah.
it was. I thought they were gonna take. I thought that was gonna go somewhere, but it was just never really brought up again. But that's fine. It was good as it
Yeah,
was.
real quick, actually, we didn't really touch on this fact. Sorry, Delilah. We'll get right back to the sub stories.
No,
'cause I know,
no,
I know you want to talk, but I want to talk about this while that's on my mind with Kazuma-san, and that's kind of a big part of the ending that we didn't really talk about. Where you find out Kazuma killed Kiryu's parents, and that the
Yeah.
orphanage Sunflower is actually an orphanage for all the people that Kazuma has
He killed.
like all the
the
children.
parents is killed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when he was a
And-
hitman. Yeah.
And it's not even a question for Kiryu that he forgives him, because Kazuma has always been his father figure.
Yeah.
And that just gave a lot more impact to that death scene.
I love how the trophy, when that chapter ends right after he dies, the trophy is called Legends Never Die.
Yeah. But all right, yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Delilah. Sub stories.
Oh no, the one with a Big Face, I think that was his name.
Big
Where
face.
or I think it was Big Face. He like you're basically rescuing a girl from getting like beat up maybe by her boyfriend, and then you find out that like they're together. It's not just like some random guy
Oh,
trying
the
to
judo
like
guy. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah. The big
And
yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, I used to live here, and I used to like fight crime in these streets all the time, but then I left, and now I want to have like a good time in Kamurocho like I used to, like show me around." And so after like you realize basically that girl and that guy were together, and you just leave him alone, he's like, "Oh, let's have dinner," and then you go have dinner. He's like, like I want something a little more spicy." Then you bring him to like one of the clubs or something like that, and eventually you have to like bring him to the underground coliseum, where the homeless park is, and fight him. and he's like, yeah, this is what I was looking for. I really like that.
No, that
That
was a
fun.
really
Yeah.
cool side quest because it was.
And then you end up fighting him. Yeah.
you just like make a friend, and then like he was a really cool guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So many of the sub stories in this game were surprisingly memorable. They weren't really. Well, some of them were a little fetch questy, but they still somehow stuck out. A lot of the ones that are up high on the list, like I'm talking like the first 1 through 6, were actually tied into the story quite a bit. There was one where you wind up running. You wind up having to confront Dojima, the patriarch that Nishiki kills at the beginning of the game. You have to face his wife, who tries to assassinate Kiryu. And after you fight off the guys that try to kill Kiryu, she like asks Kiryu flat out, like, "Did you kill my husband?" And he's like, I promise I have to go do something, but like I promise you after I'm done, you will get the answers you're looking for." And then he leaves. And I think there was one or two others. There were like 2, maybe 3 other missions that kind of tied into the whole mystery with Mizuki. Basically, just trying to figure out where she was, and there were people there was like you find out that there was a bar that kind of copied Aries, her bar, and had a hostess like dress like Mizuki and get the same tattoo, cut her hair that way and whatnot, to the point where Yakuza fellas thought she was Mizuki, kidnapped and killed her, and that was the Mizuki that they found in the bay. But
Yeah, for a while, Kiryu and Haruka thought that she was dead because of that.
yeah,
Right.
and it's in the sub story where you find out where that body came from.
See, I didn't do that, so that whole plot point was really confusing for me.
Yeah, like there's some sub stories that really tie into the main plot, and that one is like one of the bigger ones.
Yeah.
That kind of gives context behind that whole mystery.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I feel like there's more sub stories that we could go on about. A lot of them are really memorable. A lot of them are really enjoyable.
They're fun.
The last ones I think I'll mention are the romancing the 2 girls at the cabaret clubs, Yui and Rina.
You guys mentioned this in the chat, and I actually didn't do this at all because it wasn't
I never
marked.
finished. Yeah. I think I only got to the A rank.
So when you finish it,
oh god,
for both of them, like either one of them, you get one to S rank, and you get the actual sub story regarding them, and it's different for either girl. But for Rina, who you find out while talking to her that she is gay and works there solely so she can be around cute girls.
Other girls, yeah.
And you progress her story or whatever to have her eventually she reaches a point where she wants to give up on girls, and Kiryu basically tells her like, no, you can't just let these bad experiences turn you away from what you want. Like, you shouldn't let that happen. Like, life is to be happy as it is to be sad. You just have to roll with these punches and keep going. And it winds up with them becoming friends with benefits.
Oh.
And you get a live action like a live action video of like an actual girl that looks like Rina.
Oh my god.
And she's just like in underwear lying on a bed like playing with the sheets and smiling and stuff.
Oh my god, that is so Japan.
It was simultaneously the most uncomfortable and most hilarious thing I've ever seen.
Wow.
Because I didn't see it coming. I did not expect it whatsoever. And I'm sitting there again with my roommate because he got pretty invested in this game. We're sitting there, that starts up, and he turns to me, he's like, "What the fuck is this game?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I didn't know this would happen."
They had a weird scene like that too in Metal Gear Solid 2.
Yeah, but it
wasn't as weird and pervy, but
it was very different with like that being still in engine graphics and everything, and this suddenly cutting to a live action cutscene of this girl basically frolicking around in this bed.
Oh my god.
No nudity or anything. Like, she was still wearing a brassiere and underwear, but like,
yeah, no. If you
Good.
want to see nudity in this game, the most you'll get is by playing the card game.
Good
The-
God.
Oh yeah.
What's it called? The
The
Misu King?
Oh, Mess King?
yes.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah.
shit, yeah. All right, we'll get into mini games in a moment. Let's get into mini games now. That's all I really have to say about the hostesses. Both of them have a scene like that.
That's
and
really
then
cool.
apparently, if you keep taking them out on dates and you take them on certain dates and do well enough on them, you can get more scenes like that. But it just completely came out
Once is
of
enough.
nowhere, and I was like, holy shit, this is crazy. It was so funny though. But yeah, mini games. Like, what were some of your guys' favorite mini games?
Heavy Mesu King was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was hysterical.
I collected a lot of the cards. I don't think I actually ever played it.
There's a whole.
I played a bunch. I played a bunch of the different mini games, but I only ever did each one like once. Like, I did bowling. They were all really fun. I did
Yeah.
bowling once. I did batting cages once. I did like pool or billiards, whatever you want to call it. Did darts. I did a whole bunch of stuff,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but I never like went back.
Thing about Mesu King is you are introduced to this game by a child.
Right.
I know.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, cool, it's a card game. He's in the Sega arcade. And then you go into the game and it's just like these half naked women cosplaying as bugs.
Yeah.
And you're essentially playing rock, paper, scissors.
Yes.
It's outrageous.
But what's probably the funniest thing about it is like Kiryu picks up a card and then Professor Messaking, the little boy, like says, "Oh, I lost this card." And you give it to him, and Kiryu's like sitting there like looking at the card. It's like this like practically naked girl, and he's just like, "This is a kid's game." And then as you progress the quest line, and by the end of it, Kiryu's like, Messaking is all about friendship and making connections and improving one another. And it's like at the beginning, he's like, "This is a kid's game. There's this hot chick on this card."
Right.
Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
And
At
he's
one
like-
point, doesn't he say like a lot of things have changed in 10 years or something
Yeah.
like that?
But I just love like I love the progression of that, where he's so confused and disgusted by this game, and by the end of it, he's like, "This game is all about friendship and bettering one another, or helping each other get better." And it's what was even funnier was like when you go into the Sega arcade and you get one of those Majima Everywhere moments where he shows up behind you and he's
Oh
like,
my
Yeah.
God.
"Kiryu-chan, what's this?" And he's like, "This game with hot chicks? Let's play." And he's like, "It's not just about girls, Majima. It's about friendship."
I love that so much.
It's
It's like something
great.
out of like that's like something out of the old like Digimon anime.
Right? Yeah.
like,
that's
this-
why. Sorry.
No, it's okay. The same thing kind of happens with Pocket Racer.
That's what I was gonna say. That's
Yeah.
why I love Kiryu so much, because he's like a fucking enthusiast for these stupid little games like Pocket Racer.
Well, like you get all this backstory. I get it's probably explored, and it might be explored in Yakuza 0, because that's where the Pocket Racer game was introduced. It wasn't in the original Yakuza. It was introduced in 0, and they added it into Kiwami.
Right.
That's how I've come to understand it. But like he's got this past with the Pocket Racer fighter, and all these other people that are part of the Pocket Racer sub story, and like you start unwinding like all this past about him and his relationships with these people, and like he's just trying to find like the successor to Fighter, to have someone that cares about Pocket Racer just as much. And then like you have to face Majima at some point from Majima Everywhere at Pocket Racer, and Majima's just like, "Oh, what's this? Let's race." And Kiryu's like, "Pocket Racer's all about friends and improving your car and helping one another to improve your skills."
Which is true, because
is
he was
true.
doing it because the guy was like trying to get married, but the father was like, "Oh no, like you can't marry this guy because he's just been like working at this Pocket Racer place forever." And so Kitty was like, "Okay, we have to help him get a successor so that it
he
would
can
be okay for him to marry her,
Yeah.
so he could be accepted."
He's such a wholesome man.
Yeah,
It's
I
just-
think the point is like every sub story is memorable. but they may or may not have anything to do with the story, but they're just fun.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
really a lot of fun. They're silly.
Yeah. We completely went back to sub stories when we were trying to talk about mini games. Just because a lot of them tie into one
Well,
another.
yeah,
Yeah.
the Pocket Racer was a mini game.
Yeah, and like the karaoke, which dude, even I played a lot of Rock Band back in the day, and that karaoke game was so fucking hard. Like
Yeah.
the way they structured it, and it's so fast, and it's not like Rock Band where it's all one line. Like there's simultaneously 4 lines, and it's just going down, down, down,
Yeah,
down.
that was the biggest problem with the karaoke game in this, was just like one line would be going at a certain pace, and without warning, the next line would
Yes.
be going at a completely different pace. And you really had to play the songs multiple times to get a feel for how the line changes were going to go. The
it
worst
went with
one,
the rhythm of the melody. Yeah.
the worst one being Haruka's song, which is like a fucking bop and a half. I've been jamming out to that track for the past week or so, but it's really, really hard in the karaoke minigame.
Yeah. I sucked at most of these mini games though. The only one I was really good at was the batting cage.
I was initially really bad at that because I didn't really get it. And
Yeah.
well, eventually I still have more to do for completion's sake, but I got better at it. Doing for the Haruka requests, you have to be the expert pool player at rotation, and that was like the most infuriating thing I've ever had to do. Just
Damn.
because chances are he was going to win the break shot, and then if he gets the break shot, he gets a ball in, and then since he's the expert player, all of his shots are like stupidly well calculated, and he pretty much finishes half the game on his first turn.
Right.
And if I don't manage to make a shot and keep a flow going on my turn, it turns back over to him, and then he finishes it. So it took me
Wow.
a couple hours to finally get that down, but I still had a lot of fun with pool, had a lot of fun with darts. I really liked the bowling.
Yeah, bowling was fun.
Bowling was like ridiculous.
There was a lot of depth to it, and like just there was so much leading up to actually like rolling. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't just
Mhm.
rolling. Like you're picking the size of your ball, you're lining everything up. It was very strategic.
Yeah.
And it still managed to have some sort of like feeling of randomness when you go to actually toss the ball down, and then you can kind of course correct it a little bit depending on how you stop the line. But still, yeah, I really like the bowling. That might have honestly been my favorite minigame. I'm coming around on a lot of the gambling games too. I'm learning the ones in the gambling hall, the more Japanese
Yeah.
gambling games.
Did you have to use any of the pieces
Uh,
that you collect?
I've been doing that to get them A, out of my inventory, and B, for just making completion easier.
Yeah.
But I'm weirdly having a lot of fun with it.
Cool.
Like, I didn't expect to have this much fun like with those gambling games. I thought they would be really frustrating. The only ones that I have not tried yet are shogi and mahjong, and from what I understand about mahjong specifically, it is super complicated, and I don't know how much fun I'll have with that one.
Yeah, that's what turned me off to like going for the platinum of this game is like A, I'm not good at mini games period ever,
Yeah.
and B, like to get the platinum you need to master all the mini games. I can't, I don't have it in me. But that's pretty cool though. Like if you want to learn those like different casino games or just have fun at like the batting cage or pool table.
Yeah.
There's a lot to do.
The game is just it's super distracting, but yet it doesn't feel, to me, it didn't really feel like the pacing was bad. Like it felt
No.
despite the massive amount of distractions, it still felt really well paced.
Yeah.
And
I agree with everything, and maybe this will be more of a commentary when we get into the combat, but the only thing that messed with the pacing for me is the fact that you're getting into a fight every 5 steps, and that really got in the way of me enjoying the sub stories and the mini games, is because every time I wanted to go do something, some thugs would randomly like want to fight me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
I'll
got
agree
tired of the
To
combat.
be fair, you could run away from them if you wanted, but But I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
I didn't know you could run away.
Yeah, you
That
you
probably
you
would have helped.
you could run away like because you'll see them show up on your map and you could just like avoid them and run away from them.
Yeah.
You could there's also like equipment items that you can get that decrease the amount of times people bug you. But if
Oh,
you don't
yeah, I
go if
did
you don't
have
go
that.
like looking for that stuff, you're not it's like not really, you know.
Yeah.
It ain't no thing. But speaking of fighting thugs, let's like get into the last big thing we have to talk about, something that we're all for once we're all pretty critical of,
Yeah.
which is the combat in this game.
It's janky as
So
fuck.
Yeah.
yeah, well, see, when I first started playing, I thought that was not a good like because I was going off the impression I didn't realize that this was an engine from only a few years ago at first. I thought like they were basically like kind of porting and polishing the original. So I felt like this was just like an old school, or gonna be just an old school brawler where it's just like, okay, you're just facing in a direction and mashing a button and just punching a bunch of dudes.
Yeah.
But it quickly turns into, as enemies start rapidly ramping up in their power, speed, they get bladed weapons that can, and guns that can just fucking
God, the fucking
knock
guns.
you out of, yeah, the guns were the worst. Like,
Yeah. Luckily, the fire rate on them was really low. Like you didn't get
yeah.
shot at like too often that it got that frustrating. But I agree that it was still frustrating. It still
And
happened.
you could
Like
still,
anytime it happened.
you could still dodge gunshots, but the problem is most of the times I got shot, it was by somebody off camera.
Mm.
Like, and I would be in the middle of a mob of like 10 guys, and there would be one or two guys off camera with like handguns shooting at me or like whatever it was, silence. But it was really, and like, it was really when the enemies started having weapons and could beat you down in one hit and knock you out and like take away your entire heat meter that the game started almost becoming a slog. Like
Yeah.
early on when it's just a few guys or it's one boss and you can use it's easier to apply the skills that you have and it doesn't feel like you're just being mobbed and beaten down on until you eventually grind your way through, if that makes any sense.
No, yeah. I
Yeah,
agree.
the bad thing is that like at first the game felt so simple that I felt like I was missing something.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, any combination of like square, triangle, and sometimes circle. But then eventually you unlock more abilities, and I felt like at a certain point I felt under leveled. But once I got certain abilities and actually applied them, right? 'Cause
Yes.
sometimes I would forget how to use certain things. I would get my ass kicked. So when I finally applied them, I was like, wow, these upgrades actually matter. And that's the only part of the combat that I liked, is the fact that the upgrades made you feel stronger.
And it doesn't
were
do a good
significant.
job of explaining how to apply those
No,
in combat.
it does not, because there's a lot of heat actions that are super circumstantial, but like
Yes.
not all of the ones that you even unlock feel like they're that useful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's like, for instance, a good example of this is there's a boss mechanic. It's not even just a boss mechanic. Majima uses this all the time as well, where you'll every once in a while during the fight, they'll like seem like they're kind of stunned, but they're glowing, and the boss or Majima is regenning their health.
Yeah.
And at first, I was like, "How the fuck do I stop this?" Then I noticed I could get my heat bar up just enough that I could grab an item and hit triangle and bash them, and it would stop it.
Not even
It
that.
was
but
only like the second to last boss fight I realized if you were in the form that matched the color they were glowing and you had a heat bar, you could hit triangle to do like a special move on them.
that's what I
Damn,
was
it took
about
you
to
that
bring up.
long? Shit.
Yeah.
It took me that long too. I didn't notice that until the
Wow.
last few chapters.
Oh,
I like
shit.
anytime the like sometimes I'd see the heat action button show up, and it never really clicked with me why. I didn't really register with me that I happened to be in the same combat mode as like the glow that the enemy was doing. It just never registered in my brain that was that correlation. So like by the
No,
time
yeah.
I realized it later, like Majima's glowing purple, I switch to Rush, and I'm like, oh shit, the button's there, and then I do it to stop the regen. Like, I noticed that way too late too. Totally agree.
Yeah, it wasn't even always consistent either. Like, sometimes you would switch your stance to the same color, and it wouldn't even give you the prompts to do it.
Yeah, that happened for me a couple times too. Even when I had heat, like, and was in heat mode, like, it still just wouldn't be there, and I didn't really get why.
I will admit though that towards the end game in the last few chapters, once I had like all my techniques for like and all my heat actions, particularly for rush mode. Rush mode is what I definitely use for the majority of this game, just because it was easier to dodge and dart around, especially powerful boss enemies, than take them head on and block them.
Yeah.
But once I had all those techniques and I got really good at dodging and weaving, and I had the ability to use like those counterattacks like we were talking about before, when enemies were trying to attack, you hit triangle and you fuck them up. Like, then the combat started to feel a lot more satisfying. But as you're progressing, and like Delaila was saying, you kind of feel underleveled all the time in that mid-game section. Yeah. It does feel like kind of a slog.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even when I did figure out some of the abilities, it didn't feel satisfying. Like, I liked how arcadey it was, but it just, like, the button sequences, and it just never felt satisfying for me. And combat is a big thing for me in video games. I wonder if this is why they turned to turn-based in the later iterations.
Maybe.
Well, isn't that just the one that's coming out?
That is the one that's coming out. That will be the first one that breaks from the formula and is a turn-based combat system. I think they've just changed up the way the combat works in past games. This one took, like I said in like earlier in the history lesson, from what I understand, this game borrowed a lot of Yakuza 0's combat system and incorporated it into itself. I'm not sure how Kiwami 2 plays. It might be different. It might be similar. Not sure. But yeah, I completely echo all these sentiments. Like, the game doesn't really tell you how the combat works too terribly well. I kind of feel like unlocking a new move or unlocking a new ability didn't always feel meaningful. There were lots of times where I would unlock one just for the sake of getting to another one that may or may not have been more useful. And they kind of leaned into one specific strength of every mode just way too much and didn't really up anything else. Like, for beast mode, it was throwing. For rush mode, it was just the dashing away. And, like, I feel like I wanted more other things for those modes than just that one thing improved.
Right.
Yeah, and there's also other, like, little things, like, so you hit X to dash, or essentially to dodge, or you hit L to block, but, like, when you're in the middle of, like, a combo, there's no way to just hit X and break out of the combo. You're kind of stuck in the animation.
Yeah.
And this is especially frustrating when, like, somebody can just sweep around behind you and you want to, like, turn around. And that's another thing, when you're holding R1 to lock on to somebody and they dash and, like, you're just stuck looking where they used to be.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, like, stay locked on, at least try to turn.
Which makes sense.
It makes sense a
like,
little bit, but
it just became it became super frustrating by the end when a lot of the tougher enemies and tougher bosses were, like, really quick, so they would dodge you often, and it was really hard to find an opening, and you wind up just getting your ass kicked for the most part.
And they were accompanied by, like, 30 other guys.
Yeah, some of them. The one that comes to mind is Lau, the guy in charge of the triad. He was really tough for me because he was really fast, and even with rush mode, like, you could dodge him, go to punch him, he would dodge you. Then he goes to punch you, you dodge him, and it just keeps repeating itself. And that fight took a while just because of how frustrating it was to find an opening and get him in a combo.
See, the other annoying thing, and you bring up Lau, and that's a perfect example of this. The weapons in this game, like especially the bladed weapons. Now, thankfully, with that boss fight, they made it so that his weapons would break eventually. But I hated, like, especially, like, the knives for, like, the MIA agents and shit like that. Like, because your weapons break really easily, and I hate that shit in games.
Yeah, so do I.
And they're expensive
It's-
to repair.
Yes,
Yeah.
and they're like almost it's like a 500,000 yen to repair.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, what really, yeah, like speaking of just enemies with like bladed weapons and just were really frustrating to fight. That fight after you meet Nishiki and Serena, and then you go out back and there's like that army of men just ready for you. That fight took me a while because like there's all these dudes with katanas. There's the one main guy that has a katana. You can't make him drop the fucking thing. At least I couldn't find a way to. I wound up just like beating up one of the guys until I could do the heat action where you grab him, swing him around, and hit everyone else, and did that until I was just down to one guy. Left all the katanas on the floor, and then just like picked those up and slashed him as best I could, and used all my other heat actions at the end to get his health down to nothing. But it took me a while to get to that point because, like, man, it's frustrating fighting an enemy with like a bladed weapon. I've honestly found bladed weapons more frustrating than guns.
Yeah.
In this game,
Yeah.
like, it's really just kind of wonky. When it's good, it's great, but
except that one boss fight in the roof. Oh my god, what was his name?
The guns.
I
yeah.
remember that
the guns,
too.
like every one you would dodge to the right and then he would shoot. So you had to like dodge, hit, and then dodge, hit. Like
I found the best way. I was doing rush, so I was dodging him a lot. I found the best way was to use because you're on the rooftop and there are like these vents, and I just used those as cover and lured him into a really tight space, so he couldn't move that much, and I just beat the shit out of him there.
Yeah, he was really tough because he was like the first one to use a pistol with like more than 5 seconds of a rate of fire.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like
someone gave me advice on how to fight him effectively, so I could have just been missing certain abilities that would be effective against gunfire or like bladed.
There's an item. Apparently, there's an item that prevents you from getting knocked down when you get hit by gunfire and knife attacks.
There's also an upgrade for it, but like if you're not that far in your upgrade tree, then you don't have that ability.
Well, you have to be in like climax heat mode, I think, for that
too,
ability to even work. Yeah.
And the last thing I kind of want to say about combat is like the absolute best mode is Dragon, but you have to invest like so much time and effort into it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to do a lot of Coliseum fighting to get all the items, and then do the training sessions.
And even more than that, you have to be working on Majima everywhere.
Right.
Like, and it's funny because a lot of
Majima appears in the training sessions.
Yes, he does as Hanya Man.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about the Majima Everywhere system and unlocking abilities in Dragon mode was like certain ones you unlock by doing something that's suggested by Nishida in an email. And like he'll try to give you a hint, but a lot of those I didn't really pick up on because a lot of them weren't very clear. So like I had no idea about like I didn't really know about the run-in at the Pocket Racer Stadium until I read it online, or even him running into you at Mesa King at the Sega arcade.
Yeah.
Bowling, I missed that, but I really shouldn't have because that one was really obvious. But like a lot of those are tied to doing those events, and once I started like doing all those and unlocking all these abilities, basically right before the final mission, like Dragon mode went from like kind of useful sometimes to like the best style I had.
Right. In the beginning, it's terrible.
Oh,
because
it's bad.
You can't even build up heat in it. Yeah.
But man, when you progress that, it 100% is the best fighting style in the game. It's so
especially
good
because
and useful.
when you get knocked down, you can jump right back up. Like you can leg sweep everybody. It basically is almost an amalgamation of all the other styles.
Yeah. And as I was saying, that Tiger Drop ability, so overpowered. Yeah. Overpowered as fuck. It is crazy. Well, do you guys have anything else to add? Jason, we didn't really talk about...
I just have to add Shinji, my boy.
I was about to say.
So, yeah, real quick, we just have to give some shout-outs to all these side characters they just fucking killed. They just fucking...
Yeah, there was a lot of people died in this game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people died. Yeah, your boy Shinji, they did him dirty, but he was a good character.
He was a homie.
Yeah. So, and then obviously he dies, same time Reina dies, so we talked about it earlier. she's another one of your childhood friends that
Yeah.
that was in love with Nishiki, pays the price.
Yeah.
The florist was pretty cool.
Yes.
I did
Yeah.
like the florist. What we got of him, at least. He was an interesting character. The whole subplot of his of his son wanting to run away with the one Yakuza boss's daughter and like helping them along. And there's a sub story that continues that plot, by the way.
Oh, that's cool.
Which was a nice little end cap to that story. So yeah, like he was a cool guy. We talked a little bit about Date. Date, I really enjoyed his arc.
Yeah.
Of coming back around to be a family man.
Yeah.
And
That was a good mission. I forget what chapter it's in. Is it Sins of the Father, the chapter?
Yeah, I want to say it was like chapter 5 or 6.
Yeah, it was somewhere around the middle, but basically like his daughter gets kidnapped and you basically run in and he's getting the shit beat out of him by a bunch of Yakuza.
Yeah.
And he keeps fighting on. That was a good mission.
Yeah. I guess the last one that I would bring up is as a tertiary villain, Shimano, the big bald guy that you have to fight a couple times.
They made you fight him in the beginning. He was hard.
Yeah, that was
that was a hard
honestly
fight, yeah.
That was probably the hardest boss fight for me because I was still getting used to the combat and they throw this like hulking man at you that like there wasn't really much I could do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a very hard fight for me.
It was funny seeing how much easier it felt in the end when you finally defeat him versus that first fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
You kind of get a feel for like how far you've come at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anything else that wants to be brought up?
No.
We're gonna wrap this shit up. I don't have a final question because there's 6 other games in this franchise we haven't played.
Yeah, there's probably so
yeah.
much shit. Like I was saying before, like Kiryu is just kind of a bit of a flat character, and there's probably gonna be people in the comments like, "Yo, bro, you didn't even play Zero, bro. How do you know?"
Gonna go ahead and just say like, don't have a final question because whatever we ask, I'm sure, or whatever we ponder, whatever we think, will be answered in a later game in the series.
Yeah, this is probably just like the inciting incident and like a story that when did this originally came out in 2005?
2005.
This is like, and then 6 was the last one with Kiryu, right?
6 was the last one that with Kiryu that came out in 2017 as well.
Yeah, so you literally have a 12-year saga. So I'm sure there's crap we missed.
Yeah. Or not that we missed, but we just don't know.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly.
But okay, yeah, we're gonna wrap it there. So hopefully, if you made it this far, you played the game by now and enjoyed it. We did enjoy it. I think we all enjoyed it. Jason.
Yeah.
I very much enjoyed it.
Tell me how much you enjoyed it with the Kwasnicki rating.
Oh yeah.
In terms of Kwasnicki rating, I give this one and I'm just thinking in my head the Majima everywhere bar filling up like as I'm thinking how many points I should give it.
Well, now you have to now your rating has to be in like letter format, not number format.
Yeah, no.
So you have from rank F to rank triple S.
I have to give it a number format because that's how I always do it.
All right, fine.
God, if it wasn't for the combat, I have to give it an above average. I give it 6.7 Kiryu-chans. Mainly because of the combat. Otherwise, I would probably give it like a 7.5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember, that's still above average.
Yes,
folks. 5 is average.
So, what about letter ranking? Like from F to triple S, what would you give it on the Kwasnicki Everywhere system?
Kwasnicki Everywhere.
Yeah.
It's triple S, double S, S, A. I guess a C or a B? No, that doesn't make sense because in the middle, I don't know what would be in the middle.
Yeah, like a C.
Yeah, so B probably makes sense, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think you'd give it a B.
Oh, whatever noise he makes when it goes up.
Oh.
Oh. Yeah. It's like that crazy.
I love the noise. I love the noise Kiryu makes when you're eating in the restaurant. He's
Oh
like,
yeah.
mm.
um, thank you for listening. Delilah, what you got to plug?
Oh. Um. I'm kind of all over the place right now, but yeah, I've been streaming every Sunday at 9:30. I'm actually streaming Ni no Kuni now. The first one,
Oh.
Wrath of the White Witch, and I really like it. And
Cool.
I hadn't realized I started streaming it, and it's Studio Ghibli week, so that was convenient.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Mark, you know Japanese. Is it Ghibli or Ghibli? Because I love it, but I never knew if it's actually
I'm
Ghibli or
pretty
Ghibli.
sure. I'm pretty sure it's pronounced Ghibli,
Is it
but
Ghibli?
I'm not 100% certain. I think it is Ghibli.
Because Mononoke Ham is my favorite movie of all time, and
Mm.
I felt like a noob not knowing. Anyway, sorry, Delilah.
No, that's okay. And I'll probably I might either stream or do a recording of The Last of Us since well, you'll see. That's our next game. I'll just say it.
Spoilers!
God damn
Giving it away too fast. Yes, the next game that we'll be playing is The Last of Us, and we'll be playing the DLC episode Left Behind. If you have the game on PS3, I think Left Behind is like $10. If you have the remastered version for PS4, it comes with it. You don't have to pay anything extra. But Left Behind is kind of core to the Last of Us experience, so don't wanna leave it. We don't want to leave it behind, so to speak. So
I see what you did there.
yes, for our next episode, The Last of Us and The Last of Us Left Behind, in preparation for June 19th's release of The Last of Us Part 2. So expect that episode to be out before The Last of Us Part 2 comes out, so you can play through the game, listen to our Spoilercast, and then go right into The Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah.
As for everything else, if you listen to this on YouTube, please like the episode. Please subscribe to the channel. Give us a comment. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you didn't like. If you listen on iTunes specifically, please rate and review. We would love to see a 5-star rating and a loving review telling us what you think. If you listen on Spotify or Google Podcasts, I don't think they have any sort of rating system, but thank you. It's much appreciated. If you want to reach out to us or find any way to talk to us, we have a Facebook group. You can go to the Facebook group and like it, and you can see our posts. You can comment on our stuff. You can share any of these things with your friends, your family, your dogs, your cats, your kids, your friends.
So anybody out there doing the Lord's work, getting our name out there, we all say arigato.
Yes, arigato gozaimasu. Much appreciated, truly. And yeah, we hope that you come back in a couple weeks for The Last of Us. Thanks for listening.
Arigato.
Bye bye.
Kiryu-chan.